Welcome to a new episode Beyond Perception. I'm Simon, and it is with great joy to be here today with Deborah Binder and Sofia Sóldís. And you both represent Biotechture Earthship, and it is a great thing to have you both here and to learn more about what you do. So a big welcome to you both, Sofia and Deborah.
Thanks for having us. It's a joy for us to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, so we just had a little chat initially to get to know each other. And I admitted to you that I know very little about what you do exactly. Obviously, I know a bit, and I stumbled upon Earthships, and I had to know more. And that's why I reached out to you. And I'm sure I'm in a similar situation as many of our listeners. So I'm really excited to explore and understand more about what you do exactly, and of course also what it is about with Earthships. Yeah. So yeah. And before we start, I would love to maybe to our listeners to you both to just introduce you briefly. So what is your background? How did you end up building and educating about Earthships?
Sure. Sofia, go ahead.
Okay. Yes. Hello, I'm Zófía. I am originally from Los Angeles, California, and I've always had an artistic inclination, but I was mostly managing restaurants prior to coming here. The pandemic changed a lot of things, and I started doing research into more holistic lifestyles, alternative living, traveled the States in a trailer. And during my research, I found Earthship and the Academy. So I decided to apply. I did the field study, the Academy, and now I'm here. So I'm really grateful to be here.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. So what about you, Deborah?
Well, I've been doing this for almost 10 years now, which is kind of crazy. But I'm originally from the Canary Islands, and worked actually in the corporate world for a while, then lived in Australia for a while, lived in South Africa and Namibia for a while. And then I was actually volunteering for a nonprofit organization that's based in Australia that's called Empower Projects, which is very interesting. If you or any listeners want to check it out at some point, what they do is they work with small communities to help them be completely self-sustainable and independent from any external aid. And Empower Projects was doing a project with Earthship Biotechture to build a big community center. And I wasn't even going to go to this project. I was actually going to go to do a motorbike trip through South America with my boyfriend at the time. And my boyfriend broke up with me. And as you say, you know, one door closes, another one opens. So I decided to go to Malawi in Africa to do this project. And there met the crew that is, a lot of them are still here today, that build Earthships. And that was it. I had never seen anything that made so much sense than an Earthship or building Earthships and everything that came with it. And that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years.
Yeah, thank you much for the introduction. And we also exchanged that the both of us, we have a corporate background behind us and had a bit of a change in orientation in life. And now we mentioned a couple of times Earthships. And to those out there who have no clue what we're talking about, what is an Earthship?
Well, that's a very interesting question. And I think it took me years to figure out how to respond to that in under 10 minutes. So the best way that I came up with explaining it is, if you imagine that you are on a sailboat or in a ship in the middle of the ocean, and you can't get to shore for a long time. If you start thinking about all the things that you need on this ship, you need food, you need water, you need to stay warm, and you need to stay protected from the weather, from the cold, or from if it gets too hot, right? You need to have some sort of power, probably to have some sort of light, or, you know, to be able to at least charge your radio to make any emergency calls and things like that. You probably need to do something with your trash that you're generating just from living on this boat. And you probably need to figure out where to go to the toilet and what you're going to be doing with what comes out of your body, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So those are kind of the things that and there's probably more, but those are probably the main needs that you need to address if you were on a boat or on a ship in the middle of the ocean. An Earthship addresses those same needs, those same principles, but on Earth, not on the sea. The benefits of that is that you can be completely self-reliant, self-sustainable, and independent from fossil fuels, from politics, from the system around you, from any grids. And you basically live in a house that's taking care of you. We don't even call it a house anymore. What we call it is a vessel or an Earthship, because it is not a conventional house. A house for us is a box that, it doesn't really do anything unless you bring in all these things from the grid and you have all these things going out. It's just a box. An Earthship is something that almost, it's kind of, some people call it a machine. I almost feel like it's an animal. It's something that kind of becomes part of your family, because it's this huge space that's built out of natural materials mainly, that has greenhouses where you're growing your own food, that generates power and electricity for you, that catches rainwater, that takes the rain and converts this rain into drinking water for you. So it is taking care of you while you are taking care of this house as well. It's a very special relationship. What was that? 5 minutes?
When I'm listening to you, that sounds too good to be true, almost. Where's the catch? Why are we not all living in Earthships?
Well, that's the thing. There is no catch. It is. I mean, the only catch there is really is that to have these all over the world, we would have to start ripping down all the buildings that already exist and build Earthships, and that's something we can't do. But there's really no catch. This is something that is available to absolutely everybody to do. And, and we're based in Taos, New Mexico. This is where our headquarters are. And we have programs in place for people to come here to learn how to do it themselves, to help us build them, because we want everybody to be able to have the opportunity to live like this.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
The best. I've never slept better in my life. Oh my gosh. And it's so serene living in one. It's just, you don't have any radiators rattling off to keep you warm. You don't have any artificial air being pumped into the home. It's everything's natural and clean, and you feel it. It soaks in to your essence.
So for those of you watching this now, so what I will do is to put in some images of some of the Earthships, so that people can get a sense of what we're talking about, because I looked at many of them and they look almost as pieces of art.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, some of them look a lot more artistic than others. The nice thing about Earthships is that you can make them as, out there and as artistic and gaudy as you want, or you can just make them very simple, where they don't really look that much different than a normal house. Obviously, the pictures that you see on the internet are always going to be the ones, that are the most colorful ones and so on. But yeah, we use a lot of glass bottles as bricks. And once those are in the wall and you have the sun shining through them, they brighten up in the most beautiful colors. And that's something that you will see in a lot of images, for example. We do have a lot of people that, just drive past here, for example, in Taos, which is the biggest, it's actually the biggest off-grid community in North America. And, you kind of can see the people driving by, and then they start looking, they're on the highway and start looking to the right and see these houses. And, I'm always amazed that there's not more accidents, because people are like, what is that? Because if you do put a lot of them together, they do look a little Star Wars-y, or Mad Max.
Yeah.
And so you're educating people about how to build them, actually. So I could come to you and you would show me how I could build my own Earthship, or is that what you also do?
Yeah, absolutely. We offer a bunch of different programs for people to get involved. Generally, we suggest that you start with the Academy, and it's a month-long program. The first part of the day, you're getting lectures and history about Earthship and how it's evolved and how we're taking it into the future. And then the second part of the day, during the Academy, you go to the job site and you actually put that theory into practice. Another way to get involved is with our internship. We have those generally every other month, more or less, here in Taos. And that's where you get to just have a lot of hands-on experience on different job sites at any part of the process. It could be at the beginning, it could be at the end or the middle, anywhere in between. And then for the field study, those are generally off campus, away from our headquarters. So for example, in August, we have one in Flagstaff, Arizona. And the field study is more of a dirt to doorknob experience, meaning you really get to see from the ground up how we get to construct these Earthships. And I highly recommend, for any shape, way, or form you can get involved, definitely just to, even with our online academy, that's another way you can get involved. But once you get started, it just opens up so many doors, pun intended.
Yeah, it sounds very, very interesting. And what would you say? What are the prerequisites for building an Earthship? What's the difference, or why would someone? I mean, you shared many of the things already, but what's the prerequisite to build an Earthship?
I don't think there is one, to be honest. I mean, it really depends how much you want to get involved, right? I mean, we get people that come here, and some people are very hands-on. And Earthships allows you to be able to build your own home because it is actually very simple to build it. But then you also have people that, not everybody wants to build their own home and be so hands-on. So, we get that too. And then we work just like every other normal construction company in the world. We always recommend, for people to get involved and actually see it happening, because it's amazing. If you build parts of your own home, it's going to mean so much more to you than anything else. The main structural walls of Earthships are actually done with tires, so with old scrap tires that are a huge problem all over the world. There's millions of scrap tires in the ocean, all over. Landfills are just filling up with scrap tires. And so we use these to build the structural walls of the Earthship. These then at the end, they're covered. So you're not going to see any tires in your house, obviously, anymore. And that takes care of any off-gassing or anything that might happen as well. But what we do is we pound dirt into these tires so that they become a 300-pound brick, basically. And you have a very thick wall, which then creates thermal mass and helps to keep the Earthship at a more stable temperature. And pounding tires is something that anybody can do. I mean, if you go outside after this call and if you see some scrap tires in your backyard and you have a shovel and a sledgehammer, you can start building your house today. And it's a lot of fun. It very much creates a community of people coming together and building a house or an Earthship, no matter if it is for somebody or if it's for humanitarian purposes or if it's for a friend, but it creates a very strong community. And we get people that come here, all the way from age 18 to age 70. And, everybody gets together to build an Earthship, and it's incredible the connections that appear just by doing this. So,
and climate-wise or location-wise, is there any are there any requirements, or have you been building Earthships in the heat and the cold, rainy zones or dry zones, or
yeah, It doesn't really matter. So we adapt them to the climate that we're building in, of course. We look at how much rainwater you get. That will impact, for example, the size of your roof. If you are in a place where there's less rain, you want to have a bigger roof size, and you're going to have more space to harvest and to collect this water, which we use underground water tanks or cisterns for, than if a place where it rains all the time. If you're in a place where it's a lot colder, you're going to want to have a greenhouse that faces south always. And you're going to want to have more window space so you can collect more heat and more sun when you do have that light. So we adapt them depending on where we are. But I mean, I've been here in September, will have been 10 years. And just personally, I've been on builds in Malawi, Africa, in Japan, in the Philippines, in Uruguay, in Canada, in Puerto Rico, Mexico. Jesus, I'm losing track. France,
Wow.
Germany. Yeah, so they really do work everywhere. It's just a matter of obviously adapting the design a little bit.
And I mean, you mentioned quite a few benefits in terms of self-sufficiency, or I think also organic produce, independence. How does Earthship compare to a conventional house in terms of cost?
So the cost is pretty similar. The most expensive part of an Earthship, because 45% of them are recycled materials, and the other 55 is lumber, glass, cement products, and so on and so forth. But the biggest cost in building an Earthship are actually the systems. So the solar power system and the rainwater collection and filtration system. So that's kind of a big expense that you have up front that will make the overall cost of the Earthship pretty much be the same as a conventional house. The difference comes after it's built, because you're not going to have any utility bills. You're never going to have an electricity bill. You're never going to have a water bill. You don't pay for air conditioning. That's integrated into the building naturally already. You don't pay for heating. And so that's where you save money with an Earthship, and that obviously fluctuates depending on where you are. I mean, it's the electricity bills in California are through the roof. In other places, they're a lot cheaper. But that's really where the savings come in.
It sounds absolutely marvelous.
I know. I always feel bad because I feel like, it sounds like I'm selling these, like I'm hard selling this concept, but I'm not. I just believe in it, and I'm sure with Sofia, it's like, it makes so much sense to us. It's something that's so logical, and that, we want to share with everybody that we can so much. And, everybody that works here feels very passionately about that, just because it makes sense, So.
And I think before we recorded, you shared a bit about the purpose or the vision of, can I call it an organization or a movement? Do you want to share a bit about where you want to go? Like what's driving you all?
On a personal level or as an organization?
Yeah, I mean, you can share both, but also I would love to know a bit about what's the mission of Earthship, or where do you see this evolving into?
Well, our boss always says he wants to see it spread like a virus.
Yeah.
But really, I mean, we've, over the years, because Earthship, the organization, has actually existed for 55 years now. And the founder, whose name is Michael Reynolds, he is a very admirable person who, lives and breathes Earthships and has done that for the last 55 to 60 years. He's now 77 years old, and he's still out on the job site every day building and, carrying around buckets of dirt, and is absolutely inspiring and incredible. And over the years, there's been a lot of different designs and models of Earthships that have been out there. we have now finally, probably a little bit over a year ago, come up with the most cost-effective Earthship model you can have. It's called the refuge model. So the idea is that it gives autonomous refuge to anybody, and it's the simplest structure that you can have that still will follow those 6 principles and cover those 6 needs that we talked about in the beginning, in an Earthship format, but that you can build it everywhere, depending on where you are, probably between, $100-something thousand to $250,000, depending on how many bedrooms and bathrooms you have. And so the idea is to really put that concept out there and take that concept all over the world, where, we're talking that there's already about 2,000 Earthships all over the world today. But with this new cost-effective model to really focus on that and get that out there and create an affordable housing program all over the world, but in an Earthship format.
So it seems to be a real alternative to home printing as another way of maybe approaching house building in the future.
Yeah, that's actually a really good concept. I never thought about it that way, for sure.
And from what I understand, there's in the building of an Earthship, there's a big proportion, or everything is manual labor.
Yeah, our founder puts a huge emphasis on making every aspect of the build as accessible as possible. So where it might be easier to mechanize certain things, or, bring in a tool or a big, tractor, he really emphasizes the need to be able to know how to build this in anywhere in the world with minimal to no tools at all. So yeah, it's really empowering, because people who come here, I mean, myself included, have little to no experience with power tools, and yet we get there, we learn, and we're drilling and we're sawing, and it's just really incredible to see what you're capable of when you have the right support and mindset.
It seems that it's really about democratizing the knowledge to build your own home, instead of maybe monopolizing that knowledge. Like you need to go to a constructor, to an architect or whatever, and you hire them and they build it for you. But to really have the knowledge and the understanding to do it to yourself, which you could say means real independence, right?
Definitely. Yeah, it's being the Earthship, it's this autonomous organism, and it is so liberating that you get to have a hand in building it and learning every aspect of it. You don't necessarily have to become a carpenter, electrician, plumber. Of course, these specialized careers are very intense to learn overnight. But to actually be a part of the construction of something, there's something for everyone to do, no matter your background or capabilities. So,
and like, how does it practically work? So if I'm here in Mexico and I like the idea of Earthship, what would be and I have a piece of land here. So what would be the next step? So I would come over to you to participate in the training.
You could either do that, so you could come to us and participate in the training, or you could host a group of us coming down there. And so what we would do then is we do these things called field studies, which we do all over the world, where, if you say like, hey, I'm ready to build, and you don't have to be ready to build even your entire Earthship. Like if you say like, look, I don't have the entire budget right now to build the whole house, but I have enough to start at least and get it enclosed, get it to a place where you at least have a structure. Then we would, just as every other construction company, we would give you a proposal. And if you accept it, then we would, look at when a good time is, and we would come down there for probably 3 or 4 weeks bring our crew and bring a bunch of our students and volunteers as well. So you would probably have 30, 40 people there. And we would, bring a big old job site radio and play some tunes and start pounding tires and get going.
And what you just said 3 to 4 weeks is the actual process of building an Earthship, or what's the time frame? Obviously, it might depend on the size, etc. But
for sure, it really depends on the size. But we've done projects in the past where we've done from dirt to doorknobs. So from getting there and there being a pile of dirt to actually polishing doorknobs at the end of it in 5 weeks. And that involved a crew of 14 people. And then we had about 50 or 60 volunteers and students that, just want to learn and come with us. What we do lately more is that we do in 4 weeks, we get the building, we get the structure up basically. So we get the walls done, we get a roof on, we get doors and windows in. And what that allows, you to do, and I actually did the same thing even with my house, is that I didn't have the whole budget to do the whole house. So I did that, and then I can go back and, save up a little bit more money and see exactly and think a little bit more about how I want this house to look like. And then you can do a second phase, or you can obviously work with local people as well, or with some of the students to help you finish the house, or we can come back and finish it for you.
And I mean, what you're sharing right now, like a couple of weeks to build an Earthship, that seems far shorter than building conventionally a house. How do the Earthships how are they in terms of sustenance, or how long does an Earthship last? Is this something which you continually need to maintain, or is it similar to a conventional house, or what would you say is, or is there a difference? Or
well, I just went into an Earthship the other day that is built here in Taos, and that was actually before they were even called Earthships. So it was built in 1972. And it's been empty for the last 20 years. Nothing has been happening. Nobody has been living there. There's been no maintenance done. And I walked in and I said, wow, I would move in here tomorrow. It's incredible. I mean, sure, of course there's maintenance, with every other house. And depending on, for example, we use a lot of cob walls because we like, the natural materials. You might have to do some maintenance on that. You have a greenhouse. You have plants growing inside your home. That takes constant maintenance if you wanted to strive, obviously, So yeah, sure. There's of course there's maintenance. You might have to stain the wood on the outside, every couple of years. But it's really minimal if you think about it. Especially in comparison, I think, with any conventional houses. Really, the main things that you need to do is that once every 6 months, you need to clean out your water filters because, you're collecting rainwater and that goes through a number of filters. So you want to make sure that you clean those and replace those once in a while. But it really is minimal. The nice thing about Earthships, though, too, is that it kind of allows you to do as much or as little as you want on the building. And because you have this special connection, this special relationship with your house, most people actually choose to do, rather more than less. And also, since you don't have to pay any utility bills, it gives you a lot more freedom because, unfortunately, in the system that we have right now, a lot of people are working as hard as they can to pay their utility bills, to pay their mortgages, to pay their construction companies. And once you take that out of the picture, you have a lot more freedom to exploit whatever you want to do, to, exploit, to be artistic, to exploit you. We were talking about creativity earlier, about exploiting your own creativity. And it really gives you a lot more time and freedom. I'll add one more thing. So I kind of get sidetracked a lot. So I'm sorry.
No, this is perfect. Yeah.
But I was
that's
talking
a lot. Yeah, thank you.
I was talking to somebody this morning, actually, that wants to build an Earthship in Tennessee. And he is a retiree. He's retired, and he wants to, or his dream is to build a community for retirees of 20 to 30 Earthships, and have a community there, for retired people, because he's like, it's perfect. You have year-round gardening. It keeps you fit. It keeps you on your toes. It keeps you connected with nature, and you can tinker around with your house as much or as little as you want. So, and actually, I had never thought about it that way, and I was like, wow, that's actually a really cool idea. So, yeah.
And coming back to that idea with building an Earthship in Mexico here. So I came to you and said, I have this land over there. I would love to build an Earthship there. What would be the next step? Would you come over to scout resources, material, or what we could use or reuse from what we find here easily? Or like, how do you approach a project like that?
Well, we would first analyze where you are, what your land looks like, if it's on a slope, if it's what the water levels are, if it's flat or not. We would and then we would put together a materials list from that, and that's just an ideal materials list, let's say. And then we would start working either with you or directly with providers, depending on how much you would want to get involved in the process, to see what is available. For example, if you say, yeah, there's 6 different scrap tire places around here and we can get as many tires as we want, great, that's awesome. If you are 6 hours away from the next town and there's no tires anywhere, then we would say, well, let's look at, a different way that we can do this, for example. Same thing with, we use glass bottles. We can use plastic bottles instead. We use cans. We can use rocks instead. So we would work basically with you to see what would be available or not. And that would just be, from here. Some people choose to have us come wherever to kind of do a little bit of a scouting trip. But even just with the location and pictures and the information that's on the internet, we could analyze that enough to look at all that. So then we would start staging, and then usually one person from our crew, which is usually me, would go down, would go to the location a couple of weeks before, and we call it before the circus comes to town, to make sure that everything is there. And then, we would have our crew and students come in and, as I say, start building. Do you want to go more into detail, Simon, of what your land looks like?
No, until now it's a hypothetical question. Yeah. Soon it might not be.
Should we start looking at tickets?
No, that's definitely something which I want to do. Yeah, to move off grid, be autonomous as much as possible, no, without being completely remote, but to really be sustaining as best as possible. Yeah. So also from that perspective, I'm really interested to understand more about what you do. And one of the things I found on your webpage also that one of your focus, besides training and what you're also sharing, building houses, is researching and developing new materials. Can you share a bit about that? What is this about, and what are you coming up with?
We're not doing that much on that, to be completely honest with you. But we basically kind of offer this program, and we have a lot of people that come through here through our academies and visits and field studies and so on. And we encourage people to take what they learn here and then kind of do their own thing with it. And it's really interesting to see, what people do. For example, we were talking about low tech versus high tech earlier. We've had people that have come through the academy that have said, I don't want to be manually pounding tires all the time. So they came up with a way that they can cut off the top of the tires and use a pneumatic tamper to pound the tires with that. We've had people that have done rammed earth houses and have adapted the Earthship concept to rammed earth technologies. So, you know, through our students, we learn how we can adapt things and, in a better way, and kind of diversify into our materials and ways of construction that we do.
Read that by now you trained over 3,000 students all around the world, which is quite a number.
Honestly.
Yeah, because I mean, that might just be for the academy alone, which wouldn't include, you know, all the internships, all the field studies, and everything in between. So, yeah, there's a lot of us out there.
A lot of virus transmitters, huh?
Yes.
Well, I mean, a lot of people started, you know, some people here, when you ask them how long they've been involved or whatever, they say, I am 5 Earthship years old. So it is definitely life-changing. So, yeah. But, you know, I mean, coming back to that as well, and what you said as well, that personally you would like to lead a more sustainable life. You know, Earthships is not the only solution. And you don't have to build a full-on Earthship to follow that lifestyle either. You know, a lot of people that come through here just choose to adapt some of the elements that we follow in our day-to-day life to their own life. You know, maybe they start doing a tiny little garden in their apartment in New York, or, you know, or some people have, like, we had one guy, for example, from Arizona who lived in a conventional house, and he decided to put in cooling tubes to the north side and berm, so put a lot of dirt, a hill onto his north side, so that it would help with the cooling of his house, and it reduced his air conditioning bill. It didn't cut it out all the way, but it reduced it. You know, so we're not here saying this is what we praise and this is what you have to do and this is the only way, you know. We're just saying, look, this is what it would be in an ideal world, but this is obviously not something that's practical for everyone. You know, if you live in the middle of the city, you can't just go out to a lot next door and start building an Earthship. So that's something that's kind of big for us as well, is to say, like, okay, you know, this is what we kind of see ideally, but now go and, you know, adapt whatever you want to your own lifestyle.
So so it's not really an ideology in a sense, like this is how it needs to be, but it's more
what is it?
I don't know. It's definitely a movement of people who are wanting to work in harmony with the world we live in rather than against it. Our founder loves to say these Earthships encounter the natural phenomena of the world, which makes sense, right? We have the sun, which can give us so much heat and energy. So why don't we harness that? Why don't we utilize that? We have water falling from the sky. Why don't we drink it? It's a really simplistic and more natural way of viewing the world and interacting with it. And it makes you feel more a part of your surroundings than separate from it, which is great for mental health. It's just great for your own just groundedness in general. So it is definitely a movement, and people from all over have all different sorts of ideas of how they want to integrate it into their lives. But Earthships are very different from other types of eco builds because they are integrating so many different aspects of what is necessary for living a holistic, healthy lifestyle. And it just puts it all together in this one building, this Earthship, this vessel. And yeah, so it's really special.
Yeah, that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you both about the underlying framework or worldview or the principles. And you shared before about the six human needs, which you're addressing with the Earthship concept. Now you talked about really living in harmony with nature again. And I get a sense from what you're describing, kind of reconnecting with it. Is there something else which you think is important or which really is a foundation to what you do? in terms of
I mean,
how you see the world? Please.
I think you just said it. You said it's about living with nature again. That again is very important. We've done all this before as humanity. We've lived like this before, and then obviously something changed and all these systems came in and we kind of forgot or we lost that. But really, what we're preaching here in a way is nothing new. It's just about getting back to that, to living with nature. There was, if you look at a lot of indigenous population in North America, they lived in cliff dwellings that were south facing. So they were taking advantage of the thermal mass that, these cliff dwellings were providing them to stay comfortable and warm and cool when they needed it. And they were south facing so that they could harvest as much sun as possible. Earthships is the same principle. Rainwater catchment obviously is something that has happened from the very beginning of humanity, and so on and so forth. So none of these concepts are new, and most of them kind of exist by themselves already, or have existed for hundreds of years already. And the only thing that we're doing really is, we're putting it all together in one building. But it's nothing new, really. My favorite thing to do with Earthships is to go out and build schools, which we do once in a while, because we get the children involved. And kids, they understand, they understand that there's water coming from the sky and that you can collect that and you can use that. That makes sense to them, Like, yeah, of course you do that, Where a lot of adults, it's I do this sometimes, and my friends sometimes think that I'm crazy, but I sometimes go into town or have a coffee somewhere and just start asking people, I'll go to them and then I ask them if I can ask them a question, and they're like, yeah, what? And I ask them if they know where the water comes from when they open up the faucet and they're at their sink in their kitchen, or where their electricity comes from when they switch on the light at their home. And 95% of the people don't know. If we could change that one thing and just be able to drill that into people, to have people be more conscious about where the water and their power is coming from, we could make a huge difference. And that's what's so cool about building schools, because if you're a child, and also the children that grow up here in this community, that learn this from very little on, that's absolutely amazing. Funnily enough, some of the kids that grow up here in this community in this very sustainable and holistic lifestyle, some of them that started with it, they're now in their late teens, and some of them want to become cops and want to go and join the military and things like that. But I think that's just they're just in that natural phase of doing the opposite of what your parents want you to do.
And can you share a bit about the community you're living in? How many people are living there together?
Yeah, there's about 85 to 90 different structures, about 150 occupants. Most of them are full-time residencies, but we do have some nightly rentals that we offer. So it's called the Greater World Community, and it's about 640 acres of land that stretches along the highway. So it's really easy to access. And what's really cool about the community is that Michael Reynolds, when he was crafting each plot, he wanted them to be in circles. So, and also to not allow for there to be the construction of fences, so that animals could walk across more naturally and just be more integrated into us living with them rather than against them. So it's really beautiful. Everyone has absolute privacy. All of the homes are south facing. So yeah, you have absolute privacy and you're just in your own little world in your Earthship on the mesa. It's really lovely. Yeah, it's very quiet. Mm-hmm.
So from what I understand, every structure is kind of independent, but it's still within a community.
Definitely. Yep.
And is there what orientates that community, or how, like, is there a shared set of values or principles or a guiding vision, or what kind of keeps that community together? Is it something defined, or is it more a self-evident attitude, or
we have attitude. No, it's definitely an intentional community insofar as we all are under this subdivision in the greater world community where every house is off grid. So we all share those values of living off grid, living autonomously, and kind of going off the beaten path. Apart from that, I mean, you just get people from all walks of life and who just want to live more in harmony with nature. And there's really no common denominator other than that ideology and that desire to live, more sustainably.
And everybody can join your community, or there are prerequisites, or how does it work? Because, I mean, the alternative in our society, we have rules we need to stick to. Do you have something similar, or how do you? Because also we humans, sometimes we have conflicts, sometimes we have problems. How do you navigate things like that in your community?
Well, it's a official subdivision. So, the way you get in is that you either buy land and build something, or, you can even buy an Earthship that might be for sale in the community already. And then the greater world community has a board that meets once a month, and the community has some bylaws that you need to abide by. For example, that you can't just go and build a 2-story conventional house in the community, for example, that, would ruin all of our lives. But other than that, it is a pretty open community. And for sure. I mean, there's conflicts just like in every other neighborhood. We're not just all saints, and for sure that like living in community with nature doesn't mean that, you become a person that never gets angry or anything like that, especially because we have, so many different personalities and profiles living here. So for sure. There's conflicts. Just like you could make a little sitcom out of it, and it would actually be hilarious because it'd be like that.
I would assume you attract quite a few free thinkers, no?
For sure, free thinkers, but also people that want to, escape the city in a way. We get a lot of those. And there's people here that have been here from the very beginning, that have been here for 40 years and started actually building this community. Ever since COVID and all that drama, we've gotten a lot more people from the East Coast and West Coast that kind of want to have a second home here, kind of as an escape place. And kind of as a safe place if they need it at some point. I mean, everything from all across, I think, the social spectrum. Totally.
And you shared a bit about that before, but what have you seen as benefits or changes in life experience as a result from living in an Earthship, or people reporting to you, feedback from the community?
Oh my gosh, if you look on some of the reviews of the nightly rentals, the people who come here to stay in an Earthship, which I highly recommend for anyone who's ever curious, because you really have to experience it. People count this like spiritual experience happening that they're not expecting. They're very surprised to come into these buildings and to these vessels rather, and just feel so cozy and peaceful. You have such fresh air from the greenhouse. I mean, the greenhouse really is such a majestic aspect of it. You feel like you're in a little forest. There's butterflies, literally. It's magical. And personally, since I've been living in one since I got here. It's been the best sleep that I've ever had. You feel so comforted, and it's very peaceful. Yeah.
There's a mosquito flying around and chasing me.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of that feeling of freedom is huge. You know, I mean, I haven't paid a utility bill in 10 years now.
Incredible, yeah.
That's just a great feeling, and here, as in every town, sometimes if the power goes out or there's a power shortage somewhere, we don't face that, With COVID, for example, nothing really changed for us. We were great. We were warm. We had food. We didn't really have to go to the grocery store that often because our buildings actually provide food and drinking water for us. And we just had a comfortable life, and kind of looked at what else was going on around us, and it was pretty terrifying. But we were kind of in our own little bubble here. Same, for example, we have a community center in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, every time that there is a hurricane, that there's something happening, the whole island doesn't have any power. Our community center does, and it actually functions as a emergency first relief center where people can go and charge their phones and get drinking water and those type of things that, if you are on the grid and the grid goes out, then what do you do? So it's pretty powerful.
That's also something I found on your website as a reference, that Earthships are resistant to natural disasters such as typhoons and earthquakes, yeah, which quite a surprise to me, yeah. Incredible.
Even with fire, the perimeter of the walls will withstand the fire. The wood, certain things will burn away, but the perimeter, because it's rammed earth tires, it's resistant to it. So yeah, indestructible. Can't drive a car through it.
I think what you need to do, Sam, is you should come up here sometime and do another little follow-up episode from an Earthship, so you can experience it yourself and express yourself what it feels like to you. What do you think?
Funnily, I was thinking exactly that. No, I was exactly thinking about that. Yeah. No,
whenever you want, you're definitely invited to come visit us, whatever.
Yeah, Deborah, Sófia, really interesting, very intriguing what you're doing and what you're part of. And thank you very much for giving us an insight here and sharing about what you're doing. And if you think there's something which wasn't that, but is still important or interesting to share, please just go.
I mean, the only thing, I don't know, I sometimes feel like a little bit of a prick that I sit here for an hour just saying how amazing this is and amazing what we're doing, and kind of as if it was the most amazing thing in the world. And I think what's always important is that it's not perfect. It's a step in the right direction, but it is obviously not perfect, and it's taken a lot of years to get to where it is now. And it is something that can make a difference to our planet and to our lives, even on an individual basis. But I think we still, as individual human beings, still need to do a lot of work ourselves too. But yeah, it is a step in the right direction, I think. So.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing to get involved with in some shape, way, or form, even if it's just researching and integrating certain aspects into your own life that makes sense. But taking those steps forward to take back your power, take back your autonomy as a human on this planet, and how you wish to interact with others, with the earth, with your home. I think it's a really empowering concept to really look into and see what makes sense.
Very beautifully said. I was thinking our home is where we spend most of our time, usually, if we're not maybe in a corporate career, but where we should spend the most of our time. So it makes definitely sense to really think about how and where you want to spend your time and what is your home really, and really take that as a priority. So thank you very much for taking the time and being here with us, and it has been really interesting, very insightful, very inspiring. Sparked definitely some creative thoughts in my mind. And that said, also thank you very much for everybody who's listening to that, watching this, being with us. It's a great joy and honor. So thank you for being with us. And I wish you all the best, and see you soon next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.